So let's see, are there any other chairs up? So we got a half hour, and really this is, I don't want to direct it too much. If you guys got questions, these are the guys who are serving on the commission right now. And I know you'd all like to be up here, but, so, and I just have a kind of a general roundabout about what's going on with the commission. If you guys got any concerns, whatever. So why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Ken VanDyke. My name's Tim Kreder. I farm in the Dayton area.
Julie Shadeen, farm in the Strand area.
John Sturm, I farm in the Corbett area, grow all different types of caneberries and blueberries.
Yeah, my name's Larry Duyck. I'm up in the Banks, North Plains area.
So now, guys, what happened to the price of berries this year?
Yeah.
I thought that was
The next, that's the next segment.
That's the next group.
Unfortunately, we're still price takers, and you change the legislature to make it mandatory bargaining. That might be something that are any growers interested in that. Any processors interested in that. So we see bargaining happening in grass seed. We see bargaining happening in hazelnuts. So hazelnuts have been fairly profitable, and I know probably a lot of you have planted hazelnuts in the past few years if they haven't planted 30 years prior. So it is a competitive crop for a lot of the fruit and vegetable acres, and people are switching over to a lot of hazelnuts. So we'll take any input.
Let's get maybe, is there other people here who are interested in pursuing a bargaining association of some kind? And?
Anybody for bargaining association?
I got a question.
Sure.
Explain to me what a bargaining association actually does.
They attempt to set the price prior to harvest. So you get the grower representatives and the ODA representatives and processing representatives, and through legislation, so you don't violate the law, you can meet in one room and discuss what the prices should be.
Are they historically a viable thing to do?
They've worked okay in the grass seed industry, and they've worked, I think, very well in the hazelnut industry. That's my personal opinion, not in the opinion of the Raspberry Blackberry Commission. So we just try and spend the growers' money prudently, and so I guess I've got a couple of questions for our growers out there. Is right now we tax you 1% of your gross value on your crop that you bring in, based on processing price. So we pay 1%. In blueberries, we pay so many cents a pound. So is there any interest to switch it from a percentage to a cents per pound of equivalent value? Who wants to keep it the way it is?
I guess the bigger question would be, is it working the way it is?
It is working the way it is. I personally had issue when we had to fill out next year's budget, and so we, amongst us, have to say, what do we think the price will be for next year, and that's published, and that's a public document. So we have already published what our budget is for this next year. And so that is a public document that's available to everybody. So I think that can put the grower at a slight disadvantage. So yes, it's working the way it is, okay? So I got on the commission about 8 years ago, and about 5, 6 years ago, we switched from a budget where we have the money for the next year on hand. And so we built up supplies of money, and we have several $100,000 that we have in a reserve now. And so we've been courted, because our budget is public, we've been courted by Oregon State University for the endowment. And it's been a debate amongst all of us, where should we spend our money? Should we give any money to Oregon State endowment? And of course, we hear from Bernadine that that would be a good idea. And we hear from our foundation at Oregon State that that would be a good idea. But yet we haven't come to consensus, and it's been a point of many meetings of discussions. And so we talked about, well, we should ask our growers at our annual meeting. Well, that was in December. Now we have a grower workshop meeting, and do we think that is of value to you as growers that we give money to the endowment? How many people think we should give money to the endowment and support Oregon State for a renewed professorship? Okay? And how many people think we should spend the money just for the way we're doing it now? So we have. I know better than that because I've been a farmer all my life, and we only have 3 people that have an opinion.
Well, I don't think we got the whole information, so you can't make an opinion.
Okay.
Okay, so with the money, the couple $100,000 that you have on hand, you're spending that so much every year, you got an annual budget going.
Yep.
And so the couple $100,000 isn't like you have extra money that you want to just disperse, it's money that you're operating on, correctly?
It's a rainy day fund to even out these dips, as we all know can happen, especially in the Blackberry commodity.
But you're keeping that much money ahead always, and you're utilizing the rest of it every year, more or less.
Let's go back a little, Kevin. Back before Tim and these guys started what we're doing now, they would estimate what the income would be based on price and production. Okay, and let's say they assumed there was $400,000 coming in. Then they would put out an RFP for research and promotion projects and spend that money. And those projects would be started along their way, right? The funds are allocated. And then if they had a freeze or something and you came up with a short crop where the price was much less, so the budget ended up being less than what originally was anticipated, then we had to go back and say, oh, I'm sorry, we told you we were going to give you $100,000 for your marketing. Now we're only going to give you $75,000 because we don't have the money. And so a lot of times the money was started into a project, the project never got completed, or they got cut back halfway, and it was a waste of funds. And so what these people decided to do was to save up money over the last 6 years. I think it took 6 years to get 1 full year's of assessments in the pool, and then we knew exactly what we had to spend, and that's what we anticipated spending, was 1 full year's assessments. And we always carried 1 full year's assessments ahead, so when we started a project, we knew we could finish it, and the funds weren't going to be wasted. And it's not a couple $100,000 that we've got in the account. I think it's about 1.1 million.
I thought it was
950, anyway.
right around
We got $1 million in our budget's around 600,000, 500,000 to 600,000 this year.
Yeah. And so what we try to do is what we've been doing is basically spending each year's funds, but last year we didn't spend them all because last year was or 2 years ago, I'm sorry, was a high-priced year which brought in additional funds, so we carried some of those funds ahead to even out a low-priced year like what happened last year. And so now we're kind of even out on a $450,000, $500,000 annual budget.
Are you on a variable rate or a fixed rate?
Pardon?
You on a variable rate or a fixed rate?
We assess you at a 1% per gross
You
value.
get a variable rate or a fixed rate?
On the interest we're drawing on it?
No, on the assessment. Most of the commodity commissions are set. You can set months percent, or you can set a 0.5% or 1/4%.
We're on a fixed rate of 1%.
Probably the only one in the state that's on a fixed rate, because almost all of them are on a variable rates.
But it can be changed. It can be changed, but right now it's
I
what
mean,
we've
if
been
you got
at 1%.
$1 million in the account, you know, you didn't need that, why we get it up there and seed commissions and stuff, why we lowered the rate, you know, down half the price to 0.5% for a few years till you got some of the reserves gone and raised it back up if you needed to.
And that's been an option that has been discussed as well. So I guess, who would like to lower the assessment rate?
Who wouldn't raise their hand?
Now, another
We
question.
didn't expect that.
There's only honest.
Excitement, you know?
A few years back, we talked, or there was a national referendum to do what Washington Red Raspberry Growers have done recently, is have a national market order where they tax all processed red raspberries in the nation, and they tax them for that to assess money,
And the imports,
and the imports as well. So
tax the imports.
NARPA tried to get that together, the North American Raspberry Blackberry Association tried to get that together here half a dozen years ago, and I went back to North Carolina with the message to don't let that happen. And so they attempted to go forward with that with a fresh market on blackberries, and it failed. They realized that most of the representation on the board would be processors and importers from Mexico, because Mexico brings in a lot more fresh market blackberries than we produce. So we've participated as the board. We've been sending a representative back to the NARPA meetings just to keep in touch so we know what's going on nationally. So what do our growers think of a national referendum to tax us locally as well as nationally on part of your income? Because I know Wayne.
And plus of that would be then the imports would get also assessed.
We actually pay the bulk of it.
And that's what we're doing on red raspberries right now. We pay a double assessment.
And I know Wayne
I
Boschler
think
always,
we would lower our assessments.
Wayne Boschler is always here to say, you know, 1% of your gross, you know, that works out, you know, closer to 10% of your net or higher. So that's what we're paying in assessments now. So are you willing to pay more to have a national referendum, to have national research like the Washington Red Raspberries Grove did? So,
Potentially a split.
or potentially a split, yes.
And also promotions, and it would be like the blueberries. The blueberries were the national promotion of blueberries. Any of you that raise blueberries, you know what they've done for the blueberries. It's been a very good thing the last several years, but it's taken time.
$24 a ton, you know, 16 goes nationally and 8 goes locally. So that's what we pay is for blueberries.
And Donnie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the rationale for the Washington Red Raspberry Commission was the driving force behind the Process Commission was, I remember 20 years ago when there was the big fight to the anti-dumping.
Right.
And they had to go through USDA, spend just huge sums of money on attorneys, and they finally fought and fought and fought for years, and this is when Chile started, although BC grows a huge, their tonnage in raspberries is enormous, and Poland. But so they fought it on the anti-dumping level and fought and fought and fought and spent a fortune, and they just barely slapped their hands, and then they're right back where they started. And so I think that's where the idea came, well, let's just assess it. They're gonna come in anyway, so let's just, they all have to be assessed. They have no way out of it. The USDA, when they come in through customs, they take the money.
That's the
And they
upside.
can't get out of it.
That's the upside to the national. It was is the blackberries coming in would be assessed. The downside to it that we felt why we kind of backed off before is we were losing a certain amount of control over where our dollars went to. Right here, it's locally, and we kind of make decisions on that, where instead of if it's national, we probably have a lot less to say about it.
That's why I like that you split it. Keep it local.
Question here, do you guys think that imports are the thing that are the biggest threat to our livelihood right now?
No, I think so, yeah.
No. Because
You don't think so?
no, we can't stop it.
You can't stop it, that's why it's a threat. I know.
We can't make it 1950 for you guys again. as much as
We
we'd
got
like
so
to.
many threats, that's hard to say, Tom.
Well, but that's what you're offering a solution to. You're
Yeah.
saying, well, imports are the problem, so if we get more money from the imports, we can.
I think it's a growing problem.
It's
gonna get
continuing to
worse.
increase demand. So we need to continue to increase demand if we want to keep our market, our price level up and continue to grow our market share.
Just for some information, Mexican imports into the United States in 2010, and it's categorized, raspberries and blackberries are categorized together, and it's by dollar volume. In 2010, Mexico shipped in $248 million worth of raspberries and blackberries into the United States. In 2014, that number was $568 million, and last year it was over $700 million. Mexico is producing raspberries and blackberries at a staggering increasing rate annually. Most of that is going into the fresh market. Their target is the fresh market, that's where the value's at. And I guess the encouraging part to me is that they're actually moving those kinds of volumes into the United States and getting them sold. But unfortunately, now they have the Drosophila fruit fly down there also, and the fruit that didn't make fresh market quality before, they used to just throw it on the ground. Now it brings in fruit flies, so they're carrying it out of the field and putting it in drums or shipping it to LA or San Diego, running through a tunnel and sending it up here, basically like California did 25, 30 years ago with the Oregon strawberries. And it's not as good of a berry as what we raise here. It doesn't have the flavor, but it comes in cheap. And you've got to compete with that on the market somehow. And so, you know, obviously they've moved a huge volume into this country, so the market's there. You know, it's just a matter of whether or not we can compete with them on the same price level or close enough so that we can retain market share.
So basically, you put it a different way, for us to compete, we have to tariff them to bring their prices up to our level.
No, it's not a
No, I
tariff.
don't think
Well,
we can
I'm
do that
using the
with a
word
free
tariff,
trade.
but you can call it an assessment if you want to. We have to increase their fruit coming in somehow to get it up to our level to help us be competitive.
No, it's not a price setting thing. They will be assessed at the same assessment we assess ourselves.
That's right.
So if it's a penny a pound, or if it's, then they will pay a penny a pound.
The only
It's
advantage
not
we
to
could get
say
is
they're
there's-
selling it in here at 30 cents a pound, they need to sell it at 60. They're price dumping. It's an assessment that we then use, that the industry uses the money to market it. So
But in the creation of the national board at a penny a pound, whatever, we too would have to pay that penny a pound.
Correct.
So-
But
So
the
we're not
process
making-
industry, but the process industry is, and they are, the fresh industry is saying this, we have a higher value product. So if we're gonna be priced at the pound, then we would be looking at a quarter or a third of a cent a pound. And we've talked in casual conversations, not in an open meeting yet, that we would probably then swap out some of our state assessment because we don't believe we should give up the local control and abolish our commission here because it's important. But the net assessment to the growers, I wouldn't like to see that change, how much is assessed to the growers. But we would shift a lot of the marketing arm to a national level because these big companies, you've got Dole and you've got Nature Ripe and you've got Driscoll and you've got Sunbell and G-Rock, they all have marketing departments, but it's all about keeping their market share against each other. They're not doing anything to put information out to the consumers about berries, and that's what the raspberry industry is doing. The blueberry industry has been genius about it. I mean, the production it finally seems to have caught up with itself a bit. There's going to be a hiccup here as they adjust, but it's astronomical. And there are charts that show the research on health benefits and the promotion of health benefits and the sales of blueberries. And they go just like this. They go along like this, and then they just chart each other up right like that. And that's what the raspberry industry saw. We're getting left behind, and now the blackberries, we're the only ones that don't have a big, united effort behind getting that kind of stuff done.
I was a blueberry grower in the mid-80s, and we had Thomas Payne come to the meeting and say, we got an article in, Family Circle, it's a big deal. And I go, yeah, right, and then 10 years later, antioxidants came around, and the demand for blueberries shot up. So in the blueberry industry, we realized that promotion and the sales of blueberries, the water raises everybody's boat. So the more blueberries we can sell fresh, the more blueberries we can sell frozen, the more blueberries we can sell. And so we see that happen in the blueberries, we see it attempting to happen in the washing and processed fertilizers.
Yeah, I sat on the Kreder Raspberry Commission for like 3 terms, and we struggled with a lot of the things you guys are talking about, and what we ultimately decided is that you can't promote a world raspberry. In other words, you can't put enough money in the coffers to do enough promotion to help all these countries that are bringing fruit here, and it's just free, just to come here and sell at our market. You can't raise enough money to do a good job of promoting when that happens. So the only way to combat that is to have them chip in and pay to increase the marketing for all the fruit that's marketed. So that's why you see the Blueberry Commission did what they did, and the Raspberry Commission. They can pay their way. So we're not trying to pay for all the marketing ourselves.
I guess that's the question, we're kind of asking you guys too, is do you think that if we pooled all of our funds with NARBA, which is the National Raspberry Blackberry Association, would there be enough dollar volume there to do a big enough marketing campaign to increase sales enough to help us and Mexican imports? Because Mexico's just going to keep producing more and more. They just started only about 15 years ago. They had almost nothing then, and they've gone from 0 to warp speed in a very short period of time.
How does that compare again? I think you said what we produce here?
Here we produce about 46 million pounds of processed blackberries
That
in
was last
Oregon
year.
and Washington.
Which was certainly a down year, so.
Now that number from Mexico is not pounds, it's dollar value, and that includes, that's at the border, so that includes the product, the processing, the shipping, and the insurance to get it to the border of the United States.
I think rough numbers was 110 million pounds. They didn't have 15 numbers, it was 110 million pounds in Mexico, 23 in California, 23 million in California, about 21 million in the southeast U.S. That's the bulk of it. That's the bulk of it. There were some smaller numbers. Chile, which we all worried about, 100,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's not significant.
Insignificant.
That was fresh. They're doing some.
This is all going into the U.S. market.
This is, well, it's a worldwide market, but certainly Mexico.
110, 112 million out of Mexico into the
Which
U.S.
tells you how well the blackberry market, even without promotion, is holding up. And if we gave it a nice push, how strong that could be. The interest is.
So we're all growers, and we're going to have to pay the extra 50 cents an hour or more for our labor. I don't hire too many people at minimum wage because I can't get them to work for me at minimum wage. But we're going to be paying more for that. We have all the same issues that most of you growers out there. Are we spending your money wisely? Are we doing the research that you want us to do? Are we doing the promotion that you want us
Could
to
you
do?
just give a general breakdown? How much are you guys spending on research? How much on promotions? How much on other stuff? Just in general.
110,000 on research, about 250,000 on promotion, 235, right?
We
Yeah.
scaled everything back a little, even with that surplus, with the lower assessments we did. We want to be conservative.
So administration is, 80,000, something like that, to run the office and hire an administrator. And then we have a little special other incidentals that always add up to another, 75 to 100,000. So,
And then our pay, we get, well, that's right.
we get mileage.
Get what you're worth.
We have had,
It's getting late in the day, you know.
we've talked about paying ourselves, but nobody has had enough nerve to put their name on a motion or second the motion in order to pay us. So we haven't got paid anything yet. It's my idea. I'd like somebody to replace me, but I think that the more work that the commissioners do, it takes a lot of our time to do that. And we're doing 80 hours, 60 hours a year, something like that. We have to come in for committee meetings and weekly meetings. Yeah.
I got another question. I'm from Idaho, by the way, so none of this has affected me at all.
So how's that minimum wage?
I've got to be.
Work
So
out
I
over.
pay, I really don't for what you're doing here.
Be there next month.
The question is about the money that's being assessed, if you are to make the change and go national, you're the state of Oregon, how would that affect the national? Does that, you mean you join all the other states that are gonna do that to assess this money? How can you do this? My question.
It's actually administered through the USDA. There will be a vote. It looks like anybody producing under 30,000 pounds a year will be exempt. And the assessments rates will be established, and then it will be put out to a vote of all affected growers or producers. It will be, as we say, assessed at the border on anything coming in through customs. And the first handlers, much as it's done now here in our state, so first handlers are typically processors here in Oregon for process. And so that would be the shippers, people like Driscoll, Dole, all those names I just mentioned. And so that would be 4.5 cents a crate if they go ahead with that, and that means almost nothing to them. So they're pretty enthusiastic, and it would be one board, and the representation, and Donnie can talk a little bit about this. I've seen it, but with the Washington Red Raspberry and then with the Blueberry Pencil, you can set up the board in almost any, in a lot of ways. You have a lot of discretion within your industry as you set this up, but it's very wide-reaching. You can say, we want a certain percentage are going to be growers, and then you can pop that up by region. You can have at-large members, and so you can be well represented. I don't think that's the key. I mean, I don't think that's going to be a problem for us.
So this is not turning
I think we
over,
have a lot of strong voices here. So.
this is not turning over the money to the USDA for some bureaucrat to operate them.
No, they collect it.
They just collect it.
They
for
just
us,
collect it and hand it over to the commission.
And it'd be a commission still.
Well, you call yourself the commission up there, right? I think High Bush Blueberry Council is what I think you named yourself. High Bush Blueberry
Yes,
Council,
there's
Processor
one, yeah.
Raspberry Commission, so whatever we would call ourselves.
Time's up.
Yeah. But we're administered by the Oregon Department of Agriculture already, so we're very used to that.
You know,
Oh, you got one more question.
One more question.
yeah, I don't want to, go ahead.
Don?
I would really like it if you would pursue that, or at least give us an opportunity to deal with the national.
Okay. Okay. Any
It
other
sounds
comments
like-
on
It
that?
sounds like there's a consensus here, that all you guys think that this is a reasonable idea or something you want to pursue?
Somehow we need to sell more berries.
I think we're feeling like the raspberry industry in the way they talk. We don't really have any other options. I think this commission and the promotion arm have done everything they can with the limited budget we have. And this health benefit research is very expensive. Human trials are the only thing that gets you anywhere. I went to what they called a Very Health Benefits Symposium last fall, where all the researchers from all over the world come. And it was just a coincidence that I got on the shuttle from the airport with a researcher from Scotland, a doctor from Scotland, and she was there to present on I forget the topic, what her specific field was on berry health, but she just mentioned, she just knew I was a grower from Oregon, not what I grow, and she said she was going to report on blueberries and strawberries because they were the ones giving them money. The raspberries are just getting into this. I think you guys are spending $650,000, I think, just on the research, so the promotion can then take that to the public. The nutritionists say there's a soft message that you're legally allowed to do, and then there's the real message. Palm famously got in trouble with going a little too far and got sued and had to take down all their health claims. But what these nutritionists do, they are consulted by everybody in the media. The Today Show is going to run a segment on, oh, we've got this cook that's coming on, and they're going to cook with blueberries. Give us, and so they have to have real facts to go to. And human trials are now the gold standard. And it's a lot of money, and we can't afford that out of our limited budget here.
Being from Idaho, I'm here today because you guys have got one of the very best programs anywhere I can go. And you've got a university that is tremendous production of research and development for you guys. How will that change there? Will your money go someplace else then for this, or how will this work?
Well, as we talked, it can set up how we want. This is all preliminary, but I'm thinking it'll be split. I agree we don't want to lose it, and that was a discussion at the national level, and in talking, North Carolina State, there are great universities all over doing research for their region. So production research is not going to be funded. Definitely no breeding. That is very specific to the regions, and these private companies all have private breeding programs, and they do not want any of their assessment going into a public breeding program. And so this we want to control within our state. You're right, our university is fantastic, our researchers are fantastic. They're doing research on our issues here. Some of it overlaps, but it doesn't always. And so, I'm seeing that at a national level. That's interesting. Well, they're dealing with fire blight, and we don't need to spend any money on fire blight here. And so, those are the things that will remain local and locally controlled.
Yeah, we do have a new one. When's your next meeting?
24.
Next week?
Next week.
And you're all
March
invited.
24th. That's right.
Anybody wants to be a commissioner? We can arrange that.
But,
Larry has something.
yeah, Larry.
Okay, I want to talk about crop insurance. I don't know, any of you that came to the annual meeting back in December, we had a gentleman by the name of Dave Paul that came. He works for Watson Associates, and they're working on it's a policy just for, well, it's for blackberries and raspberries. And the Washington Raspberry Growth Fellows have been working with them to set up, it would be a total revenue policy that you could buy for your farm that would be based on revenue, which then would cover both cost and production. It's a revenue-based policy. And some of you have helped me, Dave, Tom, Kevin, have helped provided data that we needed to submit to the Watson Associates for them to put together to go into the federal government risk management group of that. Anyway, the policy's moving forward. They're supposed to submit it on April 1st, and if the government moves fast, by next fall, we may be able to buy individual policies for your blackberry crop based on revenue.
Thank you, guys.